One last discussion before the Washington Commanders open up their 2024 NFL season in Tampa, Florida against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this time, we're going to hear from team analyst Logan Paulsen. That coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, everybody, to this bonus episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, David Harrison, credential member of the media, covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. And I'm here with you every Monday through Friday. Today, we're here on a Saturday, and thanks for coming through for today's episode. To all the everydayers out there, we appreciate you for coming through every single day. Locked On Commanders is your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to today's episode, where we are going to talk to Washington Commanders team analyst Logan Paulsen about the weekend's matchups, expectations for Jayden Daniels, and more. And if you want to get even more out of the Locked On Commanders podcast, sign up to be an insider today at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. And from there, you'll get exclusive conversations with me directly one-on-one. You'll also get bonus content, live text from events and games and practices, and invites to our exclusive insider-only Zoom conferences. We're having one Saturday after I get to Tampa. So if you want to get in on that, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders today. The first 2 weeks are free, so you can try it out with no risk. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Originally, I planned to air the interview with Logan Paulsen for our Friday episode, end of week episode, along with my keys to the game prediction, all that stuff. But so much stuff started happening. The left tackle rotational conversation started happening. Byron Pringle was released, all that kind of stuff. So if you missed any of that conversation, just go back to the episode before this one, after you listen to this one, and you'll get all of that conversation. But because of all of that, I didn't want to rush through it. I didn't want to just squeeze it all in as much as I could. I wanted to make sure that I give you your time's worth and make sure that we're having the opportunity to have the discussion the way that it needs to be had. So to do that, I went ahead and saved Logan's interview for Saturday here. We're going to get, a little over 24 hours before kickoff for everybody to come through and check it out. So without further ado, let's hear from team analyst Logan Paulsen. All right, Logan. So as matchups go for the Washington Commanders, week one, you're starting off on the road. Not only that, you're starting off against a team that went to the playoffs last year, three-time defending division champion of the NFC South. And I know that divisions hasn't been the greatest as of late, but still winning division championships, not easy. I don't think it really completely matters, right? Made some noise in the playoffs last season. When you look at the Commanders' offense, led by a rookie quarterback, Kliff Kingsbury back in the NFL, where do you think the key matchup resides between the Commanders' offense, Bucs defense, in order for Washington to make some noise this weekend?
I mean, I'm going to go maybe with the lowest hanging fruit. And to me, it's Todd Bowles versus Kliff Kingsbury. And I think I have a lot of respect for Todd Bowles. And I know he's not like truly the defense coordinator, but it's his philosophy there. It's his defensive perspective. And, it's just a fun group to watch. They play physical, they play fast. They got a ton of first round draft talent along the line. They've got, what's his name? The safety who's a really outstanding football player.
Antoine Winfield Jr. Yeah.
Right. But I do think that the thing that jumps out to me the most is that the pressures that they bring a little bit of pressure on first down to stop the run. They bring a ton of pressure on third down. Those pressures are really well engineered. They're designed to take advantage of protection weaknesses, to kind of put your worst pass in bad spots rules. And they also do a good job of disguising them, right? Because they really, a lot of teams don't do this, but in that 3-4 base structure, basically, some teams say, your Von Millers, your DeMarcus Wares, you're going to rush. They really challenge those guys on the edge to drop and get to zones and match concepts more than other teams that I've seen. So it's a tough defense to identify. It's a tough defense to pick up. And I think the thing that sticks out to me is Jayden, excellent about identifying coverages. And, Miami did a great job of disguising pressures and all that kind of stuff in the joint practice in the preseason game. So he's seen a little bit of it. It's going to be that times 10 because the speed's going to pick up. The game plan's going to pick up. I do think it's been helpful that they haven't shown a lot in preseason. It's going to be hard for Todd Bowles and his staff to kind of engineer pressures, you know what I'm saying, the way that they do kind of in regular season. So I think that's going to be really helpful. But I think it really is Kliff insulating Jayden, giving him tools to identify coverage. Obviously in the preseason, the solution was to go tempo, spread them out. I think it's going to be more layered and more nuanced than regular season, just because it's going to have to be. And then what are our answers versus the pressure? And again, there's other things that defense does, but I think kind of the number one thing to me is, how do you handle the disguises and how do you handle the pressure? So to me, that's probably the most pivotal matchup. Insulating the young quarterback as the play caller, making sure good against the heat Todd Bowles is going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, pressure is the name of the game for Todd Bowles. That's for darn sure. I'll never forget the first time I saw him bring a safety over the center. I was just like, why do you have a safety at nose guard? But you know what? It works sometimes. and that's the kind of thing that Todd Bowles is willing to do at times. So when you look at, actually, you kind of brought up an interesting point. So I want to kind of get your thoughts on that. The preseason, right? So there's been some conversation over, well, Kliff Kingsbury lined up Terry McLaurin 28 out of 29 times on the left side perimeter, and that's exactly what he did to D-Hop. So it's all over. He's going to ruin Terry McLaurin. Right. There's also been conversations locally about, well, he's showing too much in the preseason. So you've been through this preseason as an analyst now, and obviously as a player as well. What is the design? Because a lot of us assume it's competitive advantage. We want to preserve our competitive advantage, so we're not going to show you a lot during the preseason. But also, you got a rookie quarterback, new O-line, a lot of rotating O-line pieces. How much of it is keeping it simplistic so you can kind of achieve the things you need to achieve during training camp preseason? How much of it is competitive advantage? And is there a possibility that Kliff Kingsbury has shown too much of his offense already?
In preseason, is that the question? I mean, I don't think he hasn't shown anything. There's been nothing to see. I think obviously he's shown the hurry up of the offense. I think everyone knew he was going to do that. That was a defining feature of what he's done at every stage of his coaching career. But in terms of concepts, I mean, as vanilla as you possibly could be. It's like, here's quick game, here's your 3-step drop, here's a screen, here's maybe there's a check with me in the run game, but compared to what we've seen in practice, it pales in comparison. So I do think the thing is going to be a little bit more layered, a little bit more nuanced. Definitely. So I definitely think he's preserved advantage. I understand why fans would think that, always showing too much hurry up. I had a conversation with someone, I forget who it was, who runs a lot of hurry up in their offense. It's like, aren't you worried about them stealing? Like, we just changed. It's not that hard. And I was like, okay, well, if it's not that hard, we're ready to go. So I think there's a ton of competitive advantage preserved. I think when you look at practice, what they've shown in preseason is just a fraction of it. And I know what they're showing us in practice is still, such a small percentage of the total offense. So right. I think this game with the Commanders versus the Bucs, that's one thing I'm excited for, is you're finally going to see the offense for the first time, see install a game plan. You're going to see how he's going to use Ben Sinnott all over the formation, fullback, slot receiver, finding those competitive advantages that way, where it's like he didn't preseason, and you've been out to practice, Dave. He's been excellent. Yeah. So that's a huge feature of the offense, how they're going to use Austin Eckler. All of these things are going to be so critical for us as fans to watch and analysts to watch. But yeah, I think there's still a tremendous competitive advantage. I think they showed such a small percentage of their offense in the preseason. So I think that's kind of what they're doing. And I think, you mentioned why keep it simple. I think you just want to get good evals on guys. If the veterans are in, like the starters are in, do they feel good? They get the reps they need? Right, cool. We don't need to be stressing ourselves out. That's why you have the joint practices with teams, so you can show the stuff you want to show when the cameras aren't on.
Yeah, and I think the Miami Dolphins and New York Jets defenses will tell you they saw a lot more from that Commanders offense in those joint practices than they saw in the preseason game. So I've said it. John Keim, I know, has said it on his show. Dan Quinn has said it. Kliff Kingsbury said it. Now you've said it. So hopefully now everybody believes it. More coming up with Logan here in just a minute on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'm going to do that thanks to our friends over at LinkedIn. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by LinkedIn. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. But LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but may be open to the perfect role with your company. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit a single other job site. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, So hire professionals like professionals on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also constantly finding ways to make the process easier for you because they know that small businesses don't always have the time or the resources to do hiring the right way. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Continuing our conversation with Washington Commanders team analyst Logan Paulsen. But first, let's talk about the new Locked On NFL podcast, because the Locked On NFL podcast is now 2 shows every day. First, you get the Madman Tyler Rowland. Then you get to stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins, where I will be hanging out every Wednesday afternoon. Add in Locked On's local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice per day. But let's flip over to the Commanders defense now. So, there is, I would say a lot. There's kind of a small population of Commanders fans who are a little bit concerned. They haven't seen Daron, John, Bobby Wagner on the preseason field and how they can play off each other, communication and all this stuff. But when you look at the defense, how much of a concern is that, if at all? And where do you see the Bucs' biggest threat to this defense on their offense?
Yeah, I mean, the Bucs offense really interesting. But let's start with the first question. I'm not that worried about it. Bobby Wagner's played for, what is this, his 14th year? Like, he's been around, whatever, 13, 15. He's a Hall of Fame guy. He understands what he's doing. He's locked in. He's been in this defense before. I'm not worried about his ability to produce at all. John Daron are pros. They've handled not playing a lot in the preseason well before. They've played together with each other before. It's not like they don't play together in practice either. Like, they understand Dorrance Armstrong. They get reps with him. They understand Cleveland Farrell. Like, they get reps in practice. And I know fans don't see that, but we see it. And basically I think they've done enough to be plenty ready for week 1. Now, to the second part of that question, Tampa Bay. I'm really excited to see Tampa Bay's offense. Liam Cohen obviously is a Sean McVay kind of disciple. I think he was there in 2022 and went to Kentucky for a little bit. Now he's back in the NFL. And so you're going to see a version of this Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, West Coast, run the ball, dictate through personnel kind of approaches. And I think one of the things that makes the Bucs really is the investments that they've made along the offensive line. They've re-upped Tristan Wirfs. They drafted Graham Barton in the first round, and he's, kind of exceeded in transitioning from left tackle to center. Cody Mock in the second round last year. And then the right tackle they drafted in the second round. They've made huge investments there, and I think finally starting to pay off for them. So they're going to be able to run the ball differently than the Rams are. The Rams are this duo scheme, downhill rushing attack, but the way that offensive line moves and the athleticism that they've accrued there, they can run gap scheme, they can run outside zone, mid zone, pin pull stuff. So in the preseason, like, they're playing against Miami's first team and they're kind of running them out the club. Like, they are running this hard outside zone. White is doing a job reading it, riding the wave, punching it up there. So are they going to do that? Are they going to run pin pull? And then what is the next step for them? Are they running a lot of play action? What do the concepts look like? So I think Joe Witt Jr. has a really significant challenge, because it's not only the offensive line. Like, look at the skill position guys. I mean, Mike Evans might be the most underrated in the NFL, in my opinion. Like, he is, what is this? I mean, you would know better than me. Is this his 8th consecutive 1,000-yard season, something like that? There's
he's got 9, and I think he's going for 10. He's going to tie Jerry Rice if he does it this year. That's what I know.
And every time I watch him play, I'm just like, this guy's a beast. And no one talks about social media. And then Godwin has done a great job in the slot. He's coming back healthy. A guy that I like a lot is Jalen McMillan. The guy they drafted in the 3rd. They have the same ability LA does to get into 11 and run the ball effectively with a physical slot player. Cade Otton, the tight end, they've got weapons and they've got a good offensive line. I think it kind of all hinges on Baker Mayfield, and how he plays, and if this offense suits him, and if he's the guy that we saw going through last, or if he's, the guy from 3 years ago in Cleveland. So I think there's going to be a lot of challenges. You talk about competitive advantages. They didn't show a lot in the preseason either. But Liam Cohen comes from an offensive tree that is really challenging to deal with because of their perspective and how they teams. So Joe Witt's definitely got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a very tough matchup. And I mean, I guess, in some ways a good one to kind of get the season started because you're going to find out a lot about who you are and what you've got. And yeah, Mike Evans, 10 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons to start a career. He's already got that record. He beat Randy Moss's record. And now he's looking for Jerry Rice's record of the most all time in a row. So certainly Hall of Fame worthy career for Mike Evans and a tough matchup still for any defensive back. Let's look at a guy who's at the beginning of what Commanders fans hope is a Hall of Fame career, and that's quarterback Jayden Daniels. Now, Dan Quinn has said he doesn't have to wear the cape. Jayden himself just said last Thursday, I'm no savior on the field. There's 10 other guys. We've all got to make it happen. I think that's exactly the right mindset to give for a coach to a rookie at quarterback and for a rookie quarterback to have. Because there's a lot of excitement, Logan. There's a lot of Commanders fans with Jayden Daniels QB1 on their fantasy roster. What are realistic Jayden Daniels expectations? I don't expect you to give me a stat line, but what do you expect from Jayden Daniels in game one?
I would just honestly like to see more of what we've seen from him in the preseason. Like, what is my pre-snap picture? What is the post-snap picture? He's done such a great job with his natural athleticism in the pocket, accelerating his drops, getting the ball out with that quick release. I want to see more of that. I think you might see more quarterback design runs instead of the two we've seen. I think you'll probably see 5 to 7, I would assume. Again, what do those runs look like? Do they look like the stuff they did with Hurts when Brian Johnson was in Philadelphia as a quarterback coach? Or does it look more he was doing at LSU? How do they get to that stuff? What formations are they using? And then, how do you find your playmakers? I think he's done a great job in the preseason. Again, accuracy, ball placement, but also finding playmakers. The big play to Diami, the hitch to Terry, great job. And then I think that also kind of revert back, like, how do you keep him relatively de-stressed? Obviously, it's an NFL football game. You got to make plays. But how do you kind of say this formation gives us a look that undresses the defense, this personnel grouping undresses the defense, this helps us find our most favorable matchup. So I think a lot is on Kliff. But yeah, I think just if he can to progress way. Now, this is a big jump. It's a big jump in terms of intellectual volume. So it's going to be challenging. But I think, one of the things about this kid that's been so impressive every step of the way, rookie minicamp, he knew the offense better than anybody, right? He comes into training camp, he's in a quarterback battle, he wins that preseason game, the moment's not too big for him. So he's kind of answered every question along the way, and this is the next question. And I have full confidence that this knows how to quarterback along and develop them, and I have the utmost confidence that this is the right guy to be developed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you made a lot of good points there. I mean, he's been doing well in the preseason, but like we just talked about, those preseason defenses not exactly showing everything that they possibly have, and Todd Bowles hasn't shown everything he's got already. We'll be back with Logan Paulsen here in just a moment on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'm going to do that today thanks to our friends over at Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is you pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard is going to get you a win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September, as long as Caleb Williams is active. That's for 4 weeks of wins. So don't miss that deal, because when September ends, the deal is gone on Prize Picks. And you now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Really fun app. So download the Prize Picks app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. You tell Thursday, he was asked, like, what do you already know about Tampa? And he started rattling off. He's like, well, they got Levante David. They got this guy. They do this up front. I'm like, okay, he's been studying. He's already in the book getting some studying done. So Jayden's going to be prepared as best as he can. I think that's kind of the best thing you could say for a rookie quarterback coming into his first game. So Logan, in Tampa, there's a little bit of nerves, right? Because Todd Bowles doesn't have the greatest reputation going up against rookie quarterbacks and mobile quarterbacks. And just rookie quarterbacks alone, he's faced 15 of them in their rookie season since he became the Buccaneers defensive coordinator in 2019, obviously now the head coach. But in that span, 15 rookie quarterbacks, He's won 10 of those 15 games, which is 66% win percentage. But when you're talking about beating rookie quarterbacks and you're supposed to be a Super Bowl caliber, Super Bowl winning also, by the way, defensive coordinator, a lot of people say, okay, that's not good enough. That's actually a bad mark, is losing 33% of your contests against rookie quarterbacks. What is the key? I know this game is so nuanced, right? But we do this every week in media. What is the one key to the Washington Commanders beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you have just one?
So one, I think it all goes back to the quarterback, because that's the most important spot. And it is him with the help of the offense, because again, he's not wearing the cape, but with the offensive line and the receivers, can we identify coverages and handle the pressure? I mean, at the simplest, most rudimentary thing, can we identify what coverage are? Because then I know where the ball's got to go, and then can we handle the pressure? Because I think one thing when you look at Kliff early in his time in Arizona, and again, it changed and developed while he was there and got much better in 2001, but his protection packages were very simple. And one of the things that I've appreciated about the addition of the new O-line coach here in Washington, the protection packages have gotten a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more layered, which is great. So can we see that in execution? Can we see that in practice? And all of those of working together to support the quarterback, I think is the thing. If they win the game, it's because they've found ways to tell him the coverage and they've handled the blitzes that he's bringing.
Yeah, I think that's where it's got to start, right? At the end of the day, if Jayden gets comfortable, and you know what, I've actually read a Buccaneers website article this morning that literally said Todd Bowles cannot let Jayden Daniels get comfortable, or else this could be a really long day for the Buccaneers.
Right.
But they're thinking the same thing. Logan Paulsen, obviously NFL tight end, so all that experience, but also Take Command podcast with Craig Hoffman, the Command Center with Santana Moss, Fred Smoot. You're doing a show with Dan Quinn coming out, sideline reporter for the radio broadcast on game day. So we always appreciate your time, Logan, but especially with all the stuff you've got going on, and you've got even more of that than we just mentioned. Appreciate you coming through, brother.
Dave, thanks for having me, man. Always fun.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. So going to do it for the week. The next time we speak, it'll be following the Washington Commanders and Tampa Bay Buccaneers week 1 matchup. We're going to be doing it live from Raymond James Stadium. So stay tuned to come back, subscribe after that game to catch the live episode here on the Locked On Commanders podcast. In the meantime, if you've got questions or comments, all you got to do is text me. And you can do that by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Sign up to be an insider today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. The Madman Tyler Rowland kicks you off in the morning, and then you head through the barbershop with Tony Wiggins in the afternoon for some real NFL talk. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice per day. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day, or thanks for coming through every day like you do. Until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I will see you next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.